the iron chains. The silver ships descended from the heavens like fallen stars, their hulls gleaming with an otherworldly light that made the noon sun seem pale. Captain Zara Chen watched from her position at the Pacific Defense Station as hundreds of vessels positioned themselves above Earth's major cities. No warning, no first contact protocols. Just an overwhelming presence that spoke of power beyond human comprehension. Then came the voice. It resonated through every communication device on the planet simultaneously, speaking in perfect unison across all languages. Children of Earth, your time of wandering has ended. We are the Dominion, your creators, your rightful masters. You will kneel, or you will cease to exist. Zara's hand instinctively moved to her sidearm, though she knew how futile the gesture was. These beings had bypassed every defense system, every satellite, every warning protocol humanity had spent decades perfecting. The screens around her command center flickered, then displayed a symbol. A golden circle bisected by 3 interlocking triangles. The transformation happened within hours. World leaders capitulated one by one as Dominion enforcers materialized in Capitol buildings worldwide. These beings stood 9 feet tall, their bodies encased in armor that seemed to flow like liquid mercury. Their faces remained hidden behind featureless masks that reflected their surroundings, making them appear as walking mirrors of the world they sought to dominate. Zara received her orders directly from General Martinez before communications went dark. Stand down. Await further instructions. The words tasted like ash in her mouth. The Dominion's control wasn't brutal in the traditional sense. They didn't massacre populations or destroy infrastructure. Instead, they implemented something far more insidious. The compliance protocol. Neural implants that monitored thoughts, suppressed aggression, and rewarded obedience with waves of artificial contentment. Within weeks, major population centers had queues of people voluntarily lining up for implantation, but Zara refused. So did many others. She slipped away from her post under cover of night, following encrypted coordinates that led her to abandoned subway tunnels beneath Los Angeles. There, she found others like herself, soldiers, scientists, engineers, teachers, people who'd rather die free than live as puppets. The resistance leader, Dr. James Okoye, was a neuroscientist who'd studied the Dominion's technology. Their implants are remarkable, he explained to the gathered group, but they have a critical flaw. They can only influence conscious thought. The deeper parts of human nature, our dreams, our instincts, our capacity for chaos, remain untouched. It was Okoye who organized the expedition to Antarctica. Intelligence suggested the Dominion had avoided the continent entirely, despite establishing bases on every other landmass. The question was why. Zara led the team across the frozen wasteland, using pre-Dominion equipment that couldn't be tracked. What they found beneath the ice changed everything. The structure was ancient, predating known human civilization by millennia. Inside, preserved by the cold and some unknown technology, were records, not just of humanity, but of the Dominion themselves. Holographic archives flickered to life at their approach, revealing the truth. Humanity hadn't evolved on Earth. They were refugees, survivors of a great war that had spanned galaxies. The Dominion hadn't created them. They had fought them, to a standstill eons ago. Earth was a hiding place, a sanctuary where humans had chosen to forget their warrior past and start anew. But the most shocking revelation was yet to come. The records showed that humans possessed something the Dominion feared: adaptive consciousness. Where other species remained static in their development, humans evolved mentally and culturally at an exponential rate. Given enough time, they would always find a way to overcome any challenge. The Dominion knew this. That's why they'd come now, while humanity was still fractured, still unaware of its true potential. Zara's team returned with the knowledge, spreading it through hidden networks. The resistance grew, not through recruitment, but through awakening. People began to remember things that couldn't be memories: battles in distant stars, technologies beyond current understanding, a heritage of defiance that ran deeper than DNA. Their first target was the communication hub in Seoul. The Dominion had converted it into a broadcast center for their compliance protocol, beaming subliminal messages across East Asia. Zara's team struck at dawn, using a combination of conventional explosives and something more: willpower focused through salvaged Dominion technology. The battle was brief, but decisive. As the IDS hub fell, millions across the region felt the fog lift from their minds. The Dominion response was swift. Their enforcer units converged on Seoul, but they found something unexpected: organized resistance. Humans who fought not with advanced weapons but with unpredictability, creativity, and sheer stubborn refusal to submit. The victory was costly but symbolic. It proved the Dominion could be fought, could be beaten. As Zara stood in the ruins of the hub, watching the sunrise paint the sky in shades of rebellion, her communicator crackled to life. It was Okoye, his voice urgent. "They're mobilizing everything, every ship, every enforcer. They're going to make an example of Earth." The Dominion's retaliation had begun. But humanity was awake now, and an awakened humanity was something even the Dominion had learned to fear. The skies darkened as Dominion reinforcements arrived, their ships blotting out the sun. But Zara smiled grimly. They thought this display of might would cow humanity back into submission. They were wrong. The real war was just beginning. Part 2. The fire rises. The aftermath of Seoul was both victory and catastrophe. While millions had been freed from the compliance protocol, the Dominion's response was overwhelming. They established quarantine zones around major cities, their ships creating energy barriers that nothing could penetrate. Those inside were cut off from the world, subjected to intensified compliance measures. But the resistance had expected this. Even as the Dominion tightened their grip on the cities, humanity was awakening in the spaces between: the small towns, the wilderness areas, the forgotten corners of the world where surveillance was imperfect. Zara found herself leading a growing network of cells across the Pacific Rim. Each group operated independently, but shared a common purpose: decode the Dominion's technology and turn it against them. The Antarctic archives had revealed that human consciousness could interface with Dominion systems in ways their creators never intended. Dr. Sarah Vega, a quantum physicist who joined the resistance after Seoul, made the breakthrough. "Their technology is based on crystalline matrices that respond to focused thought," she explained during a gathering in an abandoned mining facility in Australia. "But they're designed for Dominion psychology: linear, hierarchical, predictable. Human consciousness is chaotic, creative, illogical. We can make their own weapons do things they never imagined." The first test came in Mumbai. A resistance cell led by former police officer Ravi Patel managed to capture a disabled Dominion enforcer unit. Instead of trying to reverse engineer its weapons, they did something unprecedented. They taught it to dream. Using techniques derived from the Antarctic records, they connected human volunteers to the enforcer's neural matrix. The result was extraordinary. The enforcer's armor began to shift and adapt, creating new configurations the Dominion had never programmed. Its weapons systems developed capabilities that defied its original parameters. When Dominion forces came to retrieve their lost unit, they found it fighting alongside humans, its combat patterns completely unpredictable. The battle was brief but significant. It proved that Dominion technology could be subverted at a fundamental level. Word spread through the resistance networks. Across the globe, underground forges sprang up where humans learned to reshape Dominion technology through force of will and imagination. The Dominion had given humanity the tools of their own destruction without realizing it. But the resistance faced a crisis from within. Marcus Webb, a former military strategist who'd become one of the movement's key leaders, had been compromised. Unknown to anyone, he'd accepted a modified compliance implant in exchange for his family's safety. For months, he'd been feeding information to the Dominion, allowing them to stay one step ahead. The betrayal came to light during what should have been the Resistance's greatest triumph: a coordinated assault on Dominion supply lines across 3 continents. The ambush turned into a massacre as Dominion forces appeared exactly where they shouldn't have been. Zara barely escaped the trap in Singapore, losing half her team in the process. But in defeat, she found new purpose. The betrayal had revealed something crucial. The Dominion were desperate. They wouldn't have resorted to such tactics if they weren't afraid. The final phase of the war began with a message from the Antarctic archives. Hidden deeper in the ice were coordinates, not to a place on Earth but to a location in orbit. Before their long sleep, humanity's ancestors had left something in space, a safeguard against the day when the Dominion might return. Getting to orbit seemed impossible with Dominion ships controlling the skies, but humanity had learned to think differently. Using captured and modified Dominion technology, resistance cells around the world began building something unprecedented, not a spaceship, but a planetary catapult. The principle was insane by conventional physics, but it worked through the hybrid of human creativity and Dominion quantum mechanics. Sites in Tibet, the Andes, and the Rockies became launch points where modified Dominion gravity manipulators could literally throw objects into orbit. The first attempts were failures, sometimes spectacularly so. But humans learned from each mistake, adapted, improved. By the sixth attempt, they succeeded in putting a modified probe into orbit. The seventh attempt carried something more precious, a human crew. Zara led the orbital mission herself, along with 5 volunteers from different resistance cells. Using a ship cobbled together from Dominion parts and human ingenuity, they reached the coordinates. What they found there defied explanation. A massive structure, clearly of human origin but incorporating technologies that seemed impossible. The structure activated at their approach, recognizing some genetic marker or perhaps something deeper. Inside, they found humanity's true inheritance, not weapons in the conventional sense, but something far more powerful. It was a consciousness amplifier, designed to network human minds across vast distances without losing individuality. The Dominion had always feared human adaptability. This device was the crystallization of that fear, a tool that could turn humanity's greatest strength into an unstoppable force. The activation of the device sent ripples through space-time that every Dominion could feel. For the first time, in eons they knew fear. Their response was immediate and total. Every ship in Earth orbit converged on the ancient station. But humanity was ready. As Dominion forces approached, resistance cells on Earth activated their modified enforcer units, their improvised quantum weapons, their hijacked communication arrays. The battle was fought on multiple fronts, in orbit, in the atmosphere, on the ground, and in the realm of consciousness itself. The turning point came when Zara's team managed to link the orbital amplifier with the global resistance network. Suddenly, every human fighter could sense every other, could share knowledge and experience in real time. The chaos of human thought became a coordinated storm that the Dominion's ordered minds couldn't counter. Their ships began to falter as their systems were overloaded with impossible commands. Their enforcers turned on each other as their programming was rewritten by human will. The compliance implants reversed their function, broadcasting human defiance instead of Dominion control. The war ended not with an explosion but with an exodus. Recognizing their defeat, the Dominion fled Earth's system, their remaining ships jumping to hyperspace in unison. They left behind their technology, their bases, their claims to divinity, everything except their lives. In the aftermath, humanity stood changed. They had access to technologies beyond their previous understanding, memories of a heritage among the stars, and most importantly, knowledge of who they really were. Not the created servants of would-be gods, but the descendants of warriors who had made those gods flee once before. Zara stood on the observation deck of the orbital station, watching Earth turn slowly below. The cities were lighting up again, free from Dominion control. But this wasn't a return to the old ways. Humanity had awakened to its true potential, and there was no going back to sleep. The Dominion had wanted humanity to kneel. Instead, humans had erased not just their legacy of control, but the very foundation of their claim to superiority. The universe would learn what Earth's children were capable of when pushed too far. As the first human ships began to rise from Earth's surface carrying explorers and warriors to reclaim their place among the stars, Zara smiled. The Dominion had made one fatal error in their calculations. They had reminded humanity how to fight,